when your work is both addressing that je ne sais quoi, that expression that has no words, obviously I'm having trouble finding the words, along with the structure of the composition and how those two things work together, the more we're communicating to the whole person, a person's intellect, a person's heart, and the physicality, the body of who we are, the physicality of the medium. Because we as human beings are fully integrated in that way. And when a painting is fully integrated, emotionally, physically, and intellectually, we respond to it, we resonate with it, without really having a clear-cut understanding as to how and why. Hey everyone, I'm Marianne Mitchell. Welcome to Whole Artist Mastery, which is about owning your authentic voice, making compelling work, and showing up in the world as the artist that you want to be. So I want to have a conversation with you today and to invite you to participate after you listen to the video with your comments and thoughts in the chat feed below. And the conversation today is about how knowing your authentic voice informs the making of compelling work, and how your authentic voice and the work that you make is fueled by the creative process and how you make this happen. There's a lot of information out on YouTube, everywhere, about the creative process. And so I would like to share my particular lens on what this means, because it's elusive and yet it can be very easily explained. So it's an interesting dichotomy because our creative process is anything but linear, and yet I have discovered a way to clearly explain how our process comes together so that you start with the roots of your authentic unconscious expression and you end up with something that is compelling. And what do I mean by compelling? It means that it speaks to you intellectually through the structure of the composition. It engages you emotionally because you feel something that's an indescribable feeling, or you have a very clear emotional reaction to it. And the manipulation of the medium and tools that the artist is using is the instrument through which the engagement and the connection emotionally and intellectually are conveyed. So, how does all this fit together? It's so important, and if you've listened to other videos of mine, you've heard in numerous videos me talking about finding our authentic voice. I call it going on your personal treasure hunt. So what that means is understanding how things all the way back to your childhood. For instance, somebody I'm working with described the tree that she used to like to climb when she was 4 or 5 years old. And she showed me a picture of this particular type of tree. I was blown away. I mean, it looks exactly like the kind of lines and compositions that are coming out of her. And this is a person who's only been painting for about a year. So it was pretty astonishing for us both. So that's an example of mining all the way back to various different times in our lives and emotional experiences that come out in our work today. And the more we understand who we are at the deepest level that we can, the more informed we are about why we make the work that we make and how to make the work that we make. So, how do you make the work that we make? Particularly for abstract artists, I think there's a tendency to say, well, I don't really know. It just sort of comes out of me intuitively, and I don't know what I'm trying to say, and I don't want to know what I'm trying to say. It just flows. And that is absolutely crucial. That is the crucial foundation, because abstraction really is the voice of our inner selves coming out to make a statement, both to ourselves and to those who see it. And yet, we want our work to be work that speaks to as many people as possible. So that means that some people see the world in a more concrete, logical way. Some people move through the world in a very fluid, non-linear, conceptual, pictorial way. And so when your work is both addressing that je ne sais quoi, that expression that has no words, obviously I'm having trouble finding the words, along with the structure of the composition and how those two things work together, the more we're communicating to the whole person, a person's intellect, a person's heart, and the physicality, the body of who we are, the physicality of the medium. Because we as human beings are fully integrated in that way. And when a painting is fully integrated, emotionally, physically, and intellectually, we respond to it, we resonate with it, without really having a clear-cut understanding as to how and why. So in my quest to understand all of this, and my quest to answer the question that has been asked to me over all the years that I've been teaching, which is 20 plus years, the question is, how do you do what you do? And so I've come up with an answer over the years that really spells out the unknown to the known and how you make that happen. And so I call it the 4-phase process. And again, if you've listened to some of my previous videos, you've heard me talk about this, but I felt it was time to reiterate this because it's the foundation of making compelling work. And it's a clear-cut way of understanding how you move through your own creative process. So the first phase is what I call reckless abandon. And a lot of people, Remy included, who's just walked into my studio, so you might hear him meowing. He wants to chime in. Reckless abandon is just putting marks out, checking your mind at the door, listening to music if you need to listen to music, to really delve deep down into that place without any words, without any conscious awareness. And let it out, let it be whatever it is. And the phrase that I attach to this phase is you have to start with 0% expectations and 100% kindness for yourself. So at a certain point you move out of that because, things keep moving on. And our logical brain starts to come in and say, okay, now there are two ways to look at your piece. One is by critically analyzing what you're looking at. The other way, which is somewhat destructive, is judgmentally criticizing your work. So what you want to do is look at your work with a critical, analyzing eye. What do I like? Is there anything here I'm responding to positively? What do I dislike? Is there anything I can hook into to continue on? If the answer is no, there's absolutely nothing, then you just keep going in reckless abandon, because actually the longer you stay in that non-thinking mode, the stronger the piece is. So after you move into that an analyzing piece of what is here that I want to build on, and you begin to get an answer to that, you move into phase 3, which is what I call integration. And it's the longest phase and the most challenging phase, because what you're doing is you're keeping that emotional connection alive At the same time, you're making critical compositional decisions about how to bring that emotional expression forward so that it's really being communicated. Writers do this. You know, there's grammatical structure. The way a writer uses grammatical structure has everything to do with how you respond emotionally to what you're reading. It's the same thing with visual art. How we use line, color, shape, value, and texture has everything to do with how one is going to feel and connect emotionally and intellectually to the painting. So the phrase for going through this particular phase of integrating both your mind and your heart is, I know what I want to do intellectually without knowing what's going to happen. And that's your heart, your inner energy really saying, I'm doing this instead of what you think I want to do. So often it can trip us up because we think, okay, I'm going to put purple over here, and our hand reaches for yellow, let's say. Wait, that's not what I wanted to do. Oh, well. And then what this teaches us is how to be flexible, how to pivot on a moment's mark after you make a mark. And Remy entirely agrees. And how you go from thinking it's going to be one thing to knowing that it's going to be something else, or thinking it's going to be one thing and then suddenly realizing you're back to being completely unaware of what it's going to be. Just as an aside, it is summertime here in Philadelphia, very hot. We have to keep the doors and windows open, and the cat wants to come visit. So, live YouTube filming, everybody. So, once you move through to the end of integration, you realize that you're nearing the approach of finishing the painting. How do you know the painting is finished? How do you know your work of art is finished? There are certain checkpoints, which I've gone over in previous videos and may go over again. I'm going to stay away from doing that right now. But there are various different checkpoints for checking your composition, of how you look at the composition. And then the last checkpoint, I think, is the very most important checkpoint, which is throw out all the checkpoints. Checkpoint. How does it make you feel? Could you look at it for a long time? Every time you look at it, do you see something different? Every time do you feel this sense of, wow, I just so compelled by this piece. And yes, it's good to feel that way about your own work. And yes, it's good to know that the painting has yet to get there, or it's a long way off, or at this point in time, it's in a terrible place. That's important to know too. So this 4-phase process helps us to understand the development and the circuitous route that we all go through in the creative process, from the germ of something that has yet to become something to a finished product, whether it's an idea, a painting, a conclusion of some sort, in a conversation. You know, we've all had conversations with people where we know it's come to the end and there's a sense of resolution to that conversation. And we've all had conversations where that has yet to happen. It's the same thing. It's the going from the unknown to the known. And these 4 phases help you understand how to move through that. The last piece of this is that the 4 phases are my explanation for how we move through the creative process. And really, we want to just throw those things out when we're making. If we think about these things, it will dampen and get in the way of that inner energy and spark that's connected to the unknown, that fuels our work, that makes us artists. And so this explanation is a way to help you as opposed to lock you in. We've all, or I will say for myself, I've made pieces where it all happens at once in 15 minutes. It's all there. There are few and far between, but it happens that way. It's magic. I think you know what I'm talking about. I hope you know what I'm talking about. I would love to hear your comments. How does the creative process work for you? Do you understand what I'm talking about? Do you have questions about what I'm saying? If so, leave the question in the chat box. I will answer. Leave your thoughts. I will comment. This is the kind of conversation that we have both individually with Whole Artist Mastery mentorship artists, as well as group interaction. Wham Wednesday is a free monthly discussion which talks about all aspects of being a whole artist, our authentic voice, the making of the work, and how we show up in the world as artists today. So I hope you'll join the community. If this was informative and enjoyable, please press that little like button. It really helps us grow the community. It engages you more, and for that, I thank you greatly. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks so much for listening and for watching. I'll see you in the next video.